Yeah. I noticed.
Great. Good evening, everyone. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Business Economic Development Committee. It is 6:13. Following council members who are on the committee: Councilor Fish, Councilor Hawes, Councilor Leonard, Councilor Malire. Also around the table, we have Councilor Beck, Councilor Dean, Council Chair Pelletier, and me, Chair of the committee, Councilor Fournier. Also at the table is Economic Development Officer Ann Creed. First up is land use implementation.
Yes, our planning officer, Anya Collette, is here to review that with you with the consultants. Are they on?
Chris.
Oh, they're actually here.
Yep.
But before we start, I'm going to embarrass Anya and tell everybody that she has passed the planning exam today. So we're really excited. She's now an American Institute.
It's a big deal. Yeah, thank you for that. So most of you already know about our comprehensive plan process, but for the new members, counselors, I just want to briefly say the city adopted the 2022 comprehensive plan last summer. And that plan set out a growth boundary in the city. And within that growth boundary, the intent is to direct most of our growth, and then outside of that area, have protect more of our rural farmland, natural areas, and things of that nature. The comprehensive plan also has many policies related to preserving and encouraging affordable housing, encouraging multimodal transportation, economic development, protecting cultural resources, and many other things. So one of the first things that you're supposed to do after you pass a comprehensive plan is to make sure that your land development code and your zoning aligns with the plan. And so that's, what we're going to be talking about with you tonight. Just in September, we started the first phase of the project to rewrite our land development code and our zoning. We have Chris Jeanette from Camiros here tonight to talk about that. And this very first phase, we're just trying to get feedback from you and from the public and from a bunch of different stakeholders about our current code, how people feel about it currently, how it's affecting development in the city. And so they're going to take that feedback along with reviewing our comp plan and our code and other documents. And then they'll come up with a technical review draft in a couple months that you all will see as well. And then after that, several drafts of a new land development code. So Chris, I think you said you had a presentation.
Yeah.
Is that right? So I just need to get that pulled up real quick.
If you guys are up for it, about 20 minutes.
Yep. Are you okay with the presentation? Okay. Hopefully the email's up. You can come on to the table, yeah.
You might want to share.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
So really happy to be here and meet you all for the first time tonight. We're excited to get started on this project. As Anya mentioned, we started back in September, just internally kicking off, talking with staff. We are calling this Blueprint Bang Board the Land Development Code Update. So you can go ahead and move to the next slide. A little bit about us. So my name is Chris Jeanette. I'm a principal with Camiros. I've been with the firm for about 15 years. Do zoning and land development work all around the country. I actually started out as a landscape architect and kind of fell into the regulatory side of things. So I always warn people, be careful, it can happen to you too. But we do all kinds of work. We do zoning ordinances, sustainable development plans, economic development, urban design, corridor plans, you name it, interdisciplinary firm. Go ahead. Thanks. We do have a national zoning practice. So as I mentioned, we've worked all over the country, communities large and small, everywhere from Baltimore, Maryland, New Orleans, Louisiana, Knoxville, Tennessee, We do have some recent experience in New England. We finished up in Keene, New Hampshire a few years ago, just finished up the code update from Portland at the beginning of this month, actually. We're currently working in Bath, Maine, and we've got experience in Providence and Saratoga Springs as well. We don't approach zoning and land development regulations dogmatically, so we're not going to be the firm that comes in and says a form-based code is the right thing for Bangor. What we seek to do is to really engage with folks like you, with staff, members of the public, identify what the issues are, and then bring forward solutions that are really just going to speak to those issues, right? So we're not going to try and shoehorn an approach here for Bangor, but the idea is that the code for Bangor should address Bangor's issues, whether or not that demands certain things, you know, like a Euclidean or use-based approach in certain areas, or a form-based approach in certain areas. There are going to be areas of the city that will demand different approaches, and so we're open to that part of our general approach. We also always seek to be data-driven in terms of what we're producing in terms of recommendations. So you'll see a lot of geographic information systems analysis, looking at actual on-the-ground developed conditions and comparing those to what the code is currently requiring to see where the disconnects are, and where we can really account for those moving forward. We're going to be identifying issues and testing solutions along the way. So we know that any approach that we're bringing forward is going to adequately work to solve the issues that we're identifying. Throughout the process, we also produce varied tools, maps, build-out analysis, and other educational content to really help sort of facilitate discussion and decision-making around these issues. We know it can be a little bit obtuse. Not everyone wants to talk about zoning, so we try to build that understanding and make it something that people can engage with. So as Anya mentioned, the zoning code, the land development code, is the primary implementation tool for the comprehensive plan. And so as we are starting to think about updating the land development code, we need to be plugged in to the recommendations within the comprehensive plan. So we've been taking a look and just kind of pulling out some thematic things. Obviously, a big one is increasing housing availability and affordability within the city, making sure that we're providing a variety of options, or that zoning allows for a variety of options, you know, whether it's people, empty nesters looking to downsize, or young families looking to upsize, or basically anywhere in between. Looking specifically at increasing the supply of housing units in and around downtown within the city, giving people those opportunities to live close to transit, live close to access to goods and services, live in a place where they can walk to meet their daily needs. And then expanding the city's palette of tools for housing to consider things like adaptive reuse of residential or non-residential structures, conversions of structures into residential uses, things like cluster development, expanding the approach relative to tiny houses within the city. So looking at the full gamut of housing groups. Another big theme is protecting environmentally sensitive areas within the city. As Anya mentioned, there's a growth boundary in place now. We want to make sure that the regulations within the code are really acknowledging that, seeking to protect resources where that's the goal, and encourage sustainable development where development is desired. So looking to update comprehensively the landscape requirements, making sure that we're addressing things like heat island, runoff, providing critical wildlife habitat, all of those considerations, and making sure that the regulations are really encouraging development in those areas of the city that have the infrastructure to support it. So really looking back inward inside the growth boundary to build up. In terms of supporting economic development, another key goal of the comprehensive plan, we think that the code should really look to support pathways to entrepreneurship in the community, whether that's, you know, addressing some new uses like shared workspaces, business incubators, those types of things, supporting downtown as a key economic driver, not just within the city, but within the region, and making sure that really the palette of regulations around commercial and mixed use districts are sufficient to allow the city to kind of pivot and meet market shifts. You know, we all know what happened kind of at the beginning of COVID and the aftermath of COVID. It's important to have a flexible set of regulations moving forward. So looking at ways to expand mixed use options within varied commercial and mixed use districts in the city, expanding the allowed uses, considering some emerging uses. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Evaluating and updating the industrial districts to make sure that the palette of tools is there to accommodate sort of all of the different flavors of industrial that want to occur within the city, and making sure that we're accommodating neighborhood commercial opportunities as well. We want to make sure that we're encouraging and accommodating multimodal options as a key component and recommendation of the comprehensive plan. You know, we know that a lot of the city really is auto oriented, and many residents rely on automobiles, but not everyone can rely on an automobile. Not everyone wants to rely on an automobile, so we need to be cognizant and provide options for those people as well. And then finally, social service considerations, making sure that the city has tools to continue to accommodate those types of services that benefit vulnerable populations, both within the city and the region, understanding that Bangor is the social service provider for the overall region. So we took a look at the code. We have been starting to take a look at the code. We really just jumped in the pool a couple weeks ago. So we're swimming around and kind of figure out what's what and where things are. One of the overarching kind of initial recommendations is to improve the organization of the code. It's pretty disorganized right now. We work with these things. You saw the list of all the ones that we've worked with. I couldn't find out where the dimensional tables were. It took me, a good 15 minutes to realize they're not actually in the code. They're an attachment at the top. So really taking this thing apart and putting it back together in a way that's much more logical, that's much more user friendly, so that people can come in and find what they're looking for. Bringing the base districts forward as kind of a principal organizational element of the code. Basically, all of the other regulations sit within the base district structure, and so I think bringing those forward as a key organizational element is really going to help. We're going to look to bring more of a graphic orientation to the code, improve the legibility, try and pull out all the legalese that doesn't need to be in there, put things in matrices to the extent possible. Again, just kind of unlocking that information, making it easier for people to access, and then updating and clarifying all of the definitions and measurement methodologies. So the rules of the game, right? The language that we're all speaking when we talk about land development within the city, we need to have a consistent language. All of the words need to be defined consistently and only once. We need to all play by the same rules in terms of how we're measuring and gauging things. In terms of uses, we would recommend organizing them into a global use matrix as opposed to the lists that fall within all the zoning districts right now. Making sure that we're really clarifying what uses are principal uses, which ones are temporary uses, which ones are accessory uses. Making sure that use standards are consolidated and organized and referenced within that use table. Right now, some use standards are actually included within those long lists of uses in each of the districts. Some use standards are included in the definitions of uses. It's really inconsistent in terms of where you look for those. And then looking to address emerging and creative uses. So these could be new things like specialty food services, which could be, a coffee roaster, a candy maker, all of those types of things. Industrial design, which often doesn't kind of fit neatly into the palette of industrial uses. And then artisan industrial, which is another sort of low impact industrial use that can be compatible with a variety of different contexts. And then also looking to make sure that we are adequately addressing the issue of neighborhood commercial establishments. So, those little corner stores that exist now, do we want to see more of those? Do we want to address that through remapping commercial districts, or do we want to maybe explore allowing for limited neighborhood commercial within a residential context? And then evaluating and updating standards around manufactured home parks and tiny home parks within the cities. This is just an example of a use matrix. Really nice thing, and this is not for Bangor, this is for another community, so don't try and make sense of any of this. It won't make sense to you at all. It allows really two ways to access the use structure within the code. So either, I say I'm coming into Bangor and I have some property in the CTR district. I can find that column and scan down and see what uses are allowed, either permitted or conditional. Or I could say, I want to come to Bangor and open up an arts and fitness studio, and I find my use and I scan across and see where I need to be looking for property. In terms of the zoning districts, we mentioned bringing that district structure forward. We're also proposing that it will need to be restructured and aligned with the future land use plan that's in the comprehensive plan. We're going to be looking at things like lot sizes, minimum lot sizes, setbacks, and a preliminary idea is to maybe consider looking and see if the data tells us that we might need an additional urban residential district or some additional urban districts. Making sure again that the commercial district structure is capturing the full spectrum of uses. So, whether it's downtown, whether it's a little neighborhood node, whether it's corridor commercial, whether it's the big regional stuff, making sure that we have all the tools in the toolbox to handle all of those. The approaches to handling industrial, I mentioned the various flavors of industrial. So, light industrial uses versus heavy industrial uses versus those areas of the city where you might be starting to see some other things encroaching into what was previously industrial land. They're typically, you know, a dog daycare, a CrossFit gym, indoor soccer, those types of uses, making sure that we kind of acknowledge that those want to be in certain places and maybe open the door so that we can preserve the actual industrial land from encroachment. We want to make sure that we're integrating the dimensional tables that I couldn't find into the districts. And that we're also thinking about design and bringing in a limited set of design standards into each one of the districts as well. In terms of simplifying and clarifying dimensional standards, there are a few things just kind of pulling right off the top of the pile, making sure that we're really clear in terms of differences between terminology. So what's a side yard versus what's a front yard versus what's a corner side yard. You know, there are some provisions in there right now that are a little bit unusual that we want to kind of pull apart and see if we can make some changes to, you know, minimum frontage requirement on a street of 50 feet for all lots within the city to have a minimum width. That's relatively uncommon. Is there some flexibility there? There are some flexibilities that can be granted by the CEO in section 165-70, things like front setback averaging, setback reductions, area and width reductions. Are there ways that we can just look at the situations in which those are typically granted and build them into the code so that they don't have to go through a separate process to be approved? Really just building in that flexibility in the base structure of the code. We want to update the parking ratios. They're currently a little bit on the high side. And make sure that all of the parking requirements are tied back to the uses that are within that global use matrix. Maybe consider additional parking flexibilities or expansion of some of the flexibilities that are in place already. Considering parking maximums where those might make sense in certain parts of the city. I already mentioned in terms of landscape, but we want to address parking lot landscape comprehensively, make sure that people know exactly what they need to be doing. And create that set of comprehensive landscape standards. Currently, there's some standards around buffer yards that are another attachment not included within the code. So we want to bring those in, organize them and update them along with things like lighting standards too. So went through that all pretty fast. Want to kind of pause here and just kind of give an overview of where we are in terms of the process. So we're in phase 1 right now. We were here about a week and a half ago, time flies, to have our initial site visit and a staff roundtable. Anya gave us a great tour of the city. We do have, you know, project identity, project website, which is blueprintbangor.com, which will house all the project information and opportunities for feedback, meeting announcements, et cetera, moving on. And we are at the process where I'm here just to kind of introduce the project to you all. I'm going to be having a series of stakeholder interviews, both in person with some folks that signed up to come in and meet with me tomorrow. And then we're also having virtual conversations with folks at the beginning of December, just trying to get their ideas, frequent users of the code, where are they running into issues? What do they think needs to be changed? What do they think needs to be kept? And that's going to result in the technical review report that Anya was talking about. So that'll be sort of the first public facing document that comes out related to this project. We're anticipating that will be sometime in the spring. From then we'll kind of retreat and work through the drafting process, which, as you can imagine, is kind of an intensive process. We'll put together a working committee draft, work through that with staff and the internal committee. That'll turn into a public draft that then gets reviewed by the public, revised again, presented to boards and commissions, and then we're at sort of a final public draft. And then moving into phase 3, which is the adoption, obviously assisting through public hearings and adoption and producing the final code. And I think the timeline for that is we've got about a 23-month timeline to adoption. So with that, wanted to overload you all and then give you the opportunity to talk to me a little bit if you have any questions or comments or feedback for us at this point.
Questions for Chris? Councilor Fish.
In real estate, we have a consistent problem with zoning and housing. And it's existed for as long as I can remember, and it crops up every week. And I wondered if this category of the apartments, a lot of times the older buildings at one time were 2 or 3 apartments, and at some point they were turned back into a single family, and then they were converted back to a 2 or 3 unit. And somewhere along the line, the zone didn't catch up with all the different phases of housing that a property had. So when we go to put a property under contract and get financing, we're selling it as a 3-unit because it's legally complies with zoning for safety and the way that it's made and the way that for safety issues, it's in compliance. But it's not either no longer in the zone because it's been changed. So I wondered if for that particular scenario, which happens a lot, would that fall into like an exception and flexibility concept in that idea? And I know Ann's dealt with this a lot and it happens a lot. So I just wondered if that would have a consideration for an easier process. So that especially with the housing issue, that we're no longer just, it's a dead issue. We can't make it a 2-unit or a 3-unit when it actually is and has been operating.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to reduce the non-conforming situations, because there's a lot. I mean, there's whole neighborhoods that are non-conforming, and that's really one of the base of what we're trying to do is bring things into conformity.
Yeah, because there's really no streamlined answer for it, and then it comes up constantly. So I was just
Right.
wondering if that's part of the consideration of trying to
Absolutely,
help make
yeah,
that streamline a little
yeah,
easier.
And that's something that we kind of come up against.
Yeah.
Fairly frequently, I mean, you've got a lot of these big old houses, right? At some point in time, maybe they were split into 2 or 3 units. Moved back into a single family. There's no market because nobody wants to heat those large houses anymore, right? Just by themselves, so they want to bring it back. So, I mentioned kind of looking at that full palette of tools, adaptive reuse, residential conversions, all of those types of things. So I think we'll look at a variety of scenarios for how those can either come back online or we adjust what district they're found in.
Yeah.
We're.
Great, thank you.
Other questions for Chris? He was on 2 flights and he drove up from Portland and he's here, we got him.
I'll be here for a couple
I
more.
know. All right,
All right,
great.
Thank you.
Nice presentation.
Good showing you.
Next up, the mural.
Yes, Bangor Beautiful, I think is here. Oh, there you guys are. Yeah, if you want to come up and they've been working with our Parks and Rec director and our wastewater director about putting in a mural down at the Kenduskeag pump station. Go ahead.
Wants to start?
I don't have anything prepared, so.
Sure. That's fine. So I have been working with the University of Maine, and Jillian here is going to be the student who will be teaching another class, but we're working on an art and ecology class at the University of Maine, who will be designing the artwork to go on the Kenduskeag pump station. We're looking to make it a educational mural about the Penobscot River ecology, as well as tie in freshwater mussels and the importance of freshwater mussels. Yeah, I thought it was a fitting building because being the pump station and water quality, we're talking about the importance of freshwater mussels, which are a huge filtration system for the Penobscot River, and it went hand in hand. It's also a great spot for art. The back of the building, not only the front of the building, will be designed by students. The city will have a chance to see the designs before they are done. We did talk to water quality and made sure that we will pressure wash the building, prime it with a breathable masonry paint, and then we will apply the colors to it. Anything that's metal will not be painted. Any signs or built doors, everything will be able to still be used. And we're hoping to have the art students design some migratory fish for the river that will be going on the front. We will be keeping the lettering, and it'll all be taped off and kept, again, pristine metal, and then the colors be on top. But the front of the building will be sort of as if you can take an eye mask and go underwater. And so there'll be river stones, freshwater mussels, and plants, and then like an ombre effect as if you're looking underwater, and there will be some of the fish on top. That's all I know for design wise. The rest of it will come from students. You have anything to add?
Yeah, I could talk more about the format. So my name's Jill Federick. I'm a PhD student at the University of Maine. I study freshwater mussels. And when you study something like mussels, it's really hard to get people to care because they don't often understand the importance or see them every day. But meanwhile, these are the kinds of animals that are holding the integrity of our water systems together, which is a huge pull for people that come to Maine. And one of our awesome natural resources here are pristine rivers. And I approached Jeanette about this project. She was really excited. We have all the funding to do it, so we're all set through the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, the Atlantic Salmon Federation, and some personal private donations as well. And so how we're gonna pull this off is we have 2 classes through the University of Maine, an art class and an ecology class that are gonna be working in tandem together to influence each other, teach the art students about ecology, vice versa, to pull this off. So we won't have to pay any artists to come in. And yeah, I think it's gonna be great.
Do you have any questions?
Questions?
Cultural Commission did make a recommendation for this, positive recommendation.
What's your timeline? I'm sorry, Councilor.
Oh, no, I just want to say, I think it's a really innovative project. I love the interaction between the two almost seemingly polar opposite communities coming together for something that's not only very realistic, but also showcasing the beauty of artists that we have in Bangor. And I've been saying for years, our artists have been so undervalued in the city, especially in comparison to some of the other municipalities that are not just in the state, but also in other states in our neighboring country of Canada. And I can't wait to showcase more of our art and our love for science in Bangor. It's combining 2 of our biggest attributes as a city. So thank you for being the inspiring force behind this.
Timeline?
Timeline.
So the classes will be starting, in February, January, sorry. Starting to plan, we're working with an artist, Peter Walls, who I collaborated with on the Kenduskeag Extreme Trail mural. That's the one when you're driving out of the post office on Franklin Street. And so he'll be going in to talk to the students about being an artist in general, and I'll be involved as well. They'll be learning about the ecology as well as planning out. And then we should have a design in March, end of March or so, to show the city. And then as soon as it's warm enough to apply paint, we will be out there pressure washing, applying the paint and getting going on that. So should hopefully be done by June. We'll finish it no matter what, but hopefully by the end of class.
Councilor Pelletier.
Just to say, you know, I've seen in the last couple of years, the number of murals that have come in downtown, and it just keeps going up and up. And now people are coming to Bangor specifically to do a mural walk, to discover downtown and see all the work that's being done. So this is a great way to inspire local curiosity. It's a great way to encourage people to get out and experience downtown. And this is a corner that is in much need of some sprucing up. So excited that you've picked this location, but really, really supportive of seeing this come to life.
We'll just echo that building is just so blah.
Pretty ugly. We think that.
Great spot. Anything else?
Yeah.
Councilor Beck.
I was gonna say the name showing off our muscles is so good. I hate to know what didn't make the cut.
Name wise, we're not really sure. It's
Can figure that out.
yeah.
Great, thank you. Appreciate
you.
all your time.
Just need a motion to recommend.
So
Oh, we have a motion. You have a second?
Second.
Seeing nothing in doubt, that will move forward. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Commission on Cultural Development.
Yes, every year, forget how many years we've been doing this now, but the city has been providing $20,000 a year to the Commission on Cultural Development to give grants for local art projects or events in the arts, and they split it pretty evenly as much as they can between a fall and a spring grant application process. So they've made their fall recommendations for the council's consideration. The first is the Bangor Symphony Orchestra. They requested $4,000 to support the music and wellness program. Particularly offering a free public concert at the Wabanaki Public Health and Wellness as a pilot project to further explore the healing nature of music as part of their wellness program. The other one is the Penobscot Theater Company, $4,000 requested to support the main premiere of Jenny Canal Davis's Meticulous, a lighthouse play. The show will run at the Bangor Opera House, and they'll have 3 student matinees, which will bring students in from all over Maine. The third recommendation is Robinson Ballet, $3,000 in support of the production of Stone Soup, which will be performed at the Gracie Theater at Husson in Bangor. This production will benefit families and children in the greater Bangor area by enabling the ballet to offer affordable ticket prices. And then the last one is Christopher Packard, $1,000 requested for reimbursement of materials and supplies for the Bangor Authors Book Fair and Literary Festival at your public library.
Questions? Comments?
Just one quick question. The last one, you said that's going to an individual as opposed to the library. The library isn't asking for anything, is that my
Yeah.
understanding?
It's a reimbursement of the supplies that, he needs to set up the festival. So, things like posters,
And
that
which
type of.
festival?
Oh,
Because-
the Bangor Author Book Fair and Literary Festival. It's in December, the first week. in
And as
December.
a friend of the Bangor Public Library, we also raise money for the funding of that program. I'm just curious as to how much they need.
Well, I can go down to the application to see what specifics, but last year, the city did fund this last year, as a reimbursement, and, it was a pretty successful event. Let me just see. Okay, so the specific request is materials. Originally, he had the total expenses that he puts in is 3,300. So there's marketing at 1,000, materials at 1,300, and then for the contractors and artists, $1,100. So this would go towards those materials that can be reimbursed. So it would be marketing materials. Because, he can come in and show a receipt. That's what he did this year. Gave us receipts.
I'm not sure that was answering your question.
I don't
No,
know.
not
Yeah.
particularly, no.
You-
I understand what you're saying, but
Right.
I have issues with, we fund the library, what's over 60%. They're getting funding from the Friends of the Library. We can only stretch the tax dollar so far. They're asking for a third of their expenses.
Mhm.
It seems like if we had been giving them a third every year, they should have been able to expand enough to reduce the amount we're giving. Now, I don't say it shouldn't go on, but I'm just questioning, are they looking at as a guaranteed appropriation by the city or not, or are they willing to go out and work a little bit harder and do something for themselves?
I mean, that could be a policy that, because the commission looks at their policies every grant cycle. And if they make any changes, they have to come to you as the committee. To make a recommendation on those changes. So you could certainly ask the commission to ask, to do a policy that, if it's not that the grant program is for sort of a individual event or, You know, something that's not sustaining every year,
Right.
a
I
sustaining
mean,
grant.
It's,
But this is not a library event. This is an individual who's gonna
It's
be
at the library.
showcasing.
Yeah, it's at the
well,
library.
the
So it's, to me,
library,
that's two different
no,
things.
the library effectively will sponsor it. It's not an individual sponsoring it at the library, it's the impression I got. I
Well,
think the
he
library
coordinates
does
the
this
whole
every year.
thing. Yeah,
Well, I guess I need clarification, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't have an issue with the money, I just have an issue with, I think we have to look at, and it's a good idea that you suggest, I think, yeah, I think it's great to give startup money for all the projects, but I think startup money doesn't mean you're gonna get it for 10 years. It's gonna be startup, after a couple of years, you gotta be on your own.
Any other questions, comments? Councilor Pelletier?
Just to say that I had the opportunity to speak at this event last year and just welcome people to the city of Bangor. It was well planned, well executed, very well attended. There were lots and lots of people coming in and out of the library who had come to Bangor just for that purpose. So it is something that I hope will continue. And I'm supportive of I'm not a voting member on this committee, but I am supportive of the application and the grant for this use.
Anything else? My only question was, how many people or organizations applied?
these were the
These
organizations.
are the only four?
Yes,
Okay, great. I'd be
Yes.
happy to accept the motion.
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion, we have a second. Seeing no doubt, this will move forward.
thank you.
Next up, airport check-in.
Our airport director is here.
Evening. So, first off, we want to offer on behalf of the airport staff, want to offer a welcome to Councilmember Mallard, Councilmember Beck, and we look forward to working with both of you closely in the community capacities. The airport is very well supported by community work and the council, and so we want to continue that strong working relationship that we have. The report that I have for you today, the format is slightly different than what we usually get. And what I wanted to provide you is just with the broad overarching picture of what the priorities are at the airport in terms of ongoing projects and some of the things that you will be hearing from the airport over the next couple of months. And so, as you can see from the attachment that shows the statistics for the month of September, the trends that we have seen for the last 2 years continue. Tremendous growth, as depicted by the yellow marks that you see right in the middle. The format is a little bit, I would like to change some of that to better depict the patterns that we're seeing. But overall, still strong performance. This has been one of the busiest summers that, in fact, it's been the busiest summer for the airport. And so that is a factor of the strong state of the aviation industry, the addition of Breeze Airways as the 5th airline to the airport, and a continued interest from all the airlines in expanding or growing their operation. So as far as projects, we've talked quite a bit about the runway rehabilitation project, which we recently completed year 1 of the 2-year project. So we're already starting conversations with all the relevant stakeholders for next year's construction work, which will impact the traveling public with a few more 55-hour closures. But again, when we are doing a full rehabilitation of a single runway, those are expected, and the stakeholders, particularly the air carriers and the military, have been very receptive and understanding of the necessity of these closures. and we're working closely with them. The terminal expansion project, the connector, we've been working with our subcontractors to come back and address some of the challenges that we faced earlier this year. And so we will be likely going out to rebid this project later on in this year. Hopefully, we'll have something ready by early to mid December. The parking lot expansion is probably one of the most visible projects that you might have seen out at the airport. It is coming along very well. It will add additional over 800 parking spaces to the airport, which will allow us to shift away from parking vehicles in non-appropriate areas. So it's a long overdue project that will alleviate a lot of the vehicle needs that we have at the airport. And as the next project that I had on the list, it was talked about earlier in the Finance Committee, and that's the Gate 11 passenger boarding bridge replacement, which is a gate that has been, it was taken out of service a while back. And so now we're bringing it back again, bringing in a new bridge. This will help us. The specific location of this bridge is going to allow us to operate both in the international gates as well as in the domestic, because it's at a unique location that allows both basically a set of doors that lock and you can transfer it in a pretty easy manner. As far as moving forward on what comes next at the airport, we recently had a needs assessment completed for the airport that helped us identify a number of challenges and opportunities that we are seeing at the airport. And so we're working closely with that feedback and adjusting some of the needs that were identified, particularly when it comes to training for staff at the airport, opportunities to develop some areas that haven't been touched in a while in terms of organizational structure. And so more to come on that, but a lot of work ahead of us. So any questions?
Questions, Councilor Fish?
I saw the airport this morning, or this afternoon when we flew in and we came by and I saw the parking lot, and it was so exciting to talk about it and, you know, talk about some of the granting and the funding and look at the designs. And then today when I drove by to see it, the progress that you made, and how expansive it is, and to, you know, actually see it, it was very exciting.
Yes, that was a very fast moving project, and I think it's a very visible project that we so last week we had officials from across the state visiting for a committee meeting, and it was kind of the talk of the meeting. So
Good
yeah.
job.
Councilor Pelletier?
My question is, when are we going to get to see some members from Breeze? Will they be in our next update?
Yes, so the initial flight from Breeze was October 3rd. So the next report that we have should have those numbers that will make us readjust some of these things.
Thank you.
The only question I had was just the gallons, looking at DOD, it was off 1 million gallons from last year. Is there a lot more military movement happening last year?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Okay.
a lot of, yeah. So last year, I think there was a lot more traffic making stops through here. We've seen a decrease in a number of different factors that we track in operations as well. But it's still early in the year, so.
okay, all right. Other questions? Councilor Wynn?
I just have a couple of questions. Thank you for the update. It's and maybe some of these are just very, like, there's nothing we can do about them. For first question before I had anything, it's okay if you don't have this information. What percentage of our commercial flights are direct? Do you know that off?
When you say commercial, what?
Like the passenger airlines, my apologies, is
So
that not clear?
when it comes to air carrier service, all of them are considered direct routes because you're flying from Bangor to Tampa or to uh, Newark or JFK. So that is considered a direct flight. Do you mean
Yes,
for passenger?
right, so you don't track any flights that say are connecting flights to another location. Is that accurate to say or not?
Yes, that's not information that we collect.
Okay, that's clarifying, thank you. I guess more generally, what have been some challenges this year that, because you're very new to the airport and you have a set of fresh eyes, and I just want to hear from your perspective, like, what are some things that you feel like that you can bring or have brought to the airport that you've seen in other airports, and what are some areas that you think are challenges that we can meet in the future, or what are some that we're still struggling with?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I think that obviously over the last year that I've been leading the airport, it's been working on trying to first off get both of the major projects, the runway and the connector project forward, and getting them on the path to completion. So I think one of the things that when we look at the airport as a whole, we are working on it as we speak, infrastructure needs. So that is, I think, part of what we have seen industry-wide is that the aviation industry came back. The industry as a whole was very conservative on the return from and recovery from the pandemic. And it turns out that it was completely opposite, that the industry came back roaring. And so some of that infrastructure needs that were at capacity or heating capacity before the pandemic, those needs kind of came out to the top once again. And so it's a lot of catching up in infrastructure. And then at the same time is looking at the organization as a whole on how do we prepare to address the increase in traffic that might look different, might not be as heavy on the military side, but might be an increase on the passenger side, or it might be an increase on the private aircraft operations. So it's looking at what we have and how we can fine tune it and adjust it, and being a lot more responsive and a lot more quicker to adjust for those changes.
Okay, no, I really, and I look forward to picking your brain a little bit more in the future. I just have one more question. It's kind of more of like a fun / annoying question. So you said that, I mean, obviously the airport has seen record numbers, and I think they're only just going to grow as our population increases. And I don't think I have to knock on wood for that. I think we're increasingly a more desirable location. It's more so of an annoying question because but my partner was looking at flights for her daughter to come visit Bangor via Amsterdam. She was looking at flights that would go from Amsterdam to Boston for this time of year. Crazy price. By the way, if anyone wants to go to Amsterdam right now, they're $350 round trip. But so to Boston. Once you change it to Bangor, it went from $350 to $1,150. And I actually checked it myself. It was cheaper just to book 2 separate flights. Do we have any control over that whatsoever as an airport? Is there anything that we can do to make Bangor, like obviously we're so successful right now at bringing people in, but I fear that maybe we're losing potentially even more people coming in just because just that additional, that's why I brought up that question earlier, like, if there's a way that we can somehow, through the algorithm, lower that cost overall to something that's more appropriate, I think we can even see even greater numbers, but anyway, I don't know even answers to that.
Yeah, so there's two answers. The short one is no, we do not have direct ability to influence the pricing that the airlines have. So that's a short answer. The long answer is as an airport that is very well positioned to continue to grow, the way we can address the pressures of prices and is by enticing competition among the airlines and attracting new service and providing whatever incentives we can, whether it's through partnerships outside of the council that can help us create a program that incentivizes more new service and additional competition in Bangor. It's going to create a downward pressure on prices. So that's one thing. Before we can fully go to execute on that level of moves, I think we're doing the right steps to get there. And that is facing in systems that allow us to better utilize our resources. So you might recall from the last, a couple months back when we came to the committee to get approval for the common use system. So that's again, part of some of those building blocks that are gonna help us increase the capacity that we have from our current facilities. And so when we're able to accommodate more airlines, we're able to accommodate an increase in their capacity, then again, it's creating the opportunity to be able to support more flights that eventually will help again, bring in more competition and help bring the prices down. So.
No, that was very clarifying. Thank you. Only so much we can do, I guess.
Anything else? Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. And you're,
Yeah, I'm up next. Yeah, I wanted to go through the existing projects that are going on in Community and Economic Development Department. We have 5 divisions, code, community development, economic development, housing, and planning. So in code, as the title suggests, their primary function is to enforce the building and land development codes. They've also taken on working with our community development staff, the pilot rental registry program, as well as the short-term rentals. And we're going to be doing an update on that probably at one of your December meetings, just to update how that's going. And also, you know, working with, as directed previously by council, you know, really focusing on the vacant and placarded properties of trying to, you know, get those renovated and occupied. So that's definitely been a priority in that division, working with our legal office or treasury office for the tax title properties. So there's been a lot of interdepartmental coordination with that, which has been really great. So in community development, their primary function is to administer the Community Development Block Grant Program. That's a program out of HUD. The city gets direct funds. They don't funnel through the state. They go directly from HUD to you, and you get about 850,000 plus or minus every year. And it has to serve, the primary functions is the elimination of slum and blight. Everyone hates that term, but it's an old term that dates back from the beginning of this program in the 60s. So But we use that primarily for the facade program in the downtown. I mean, that has made a significant impact on your downtown over the last few years. And also services, investments, capital improvements that serve persons of low to moderate income. So those are the two functions of it. There's also addressing urgent needs. You haven't really used that as much. That's really a rare use of those funds, for a true crisis. So the decisions for funding are guided by the action plan. So that's something you may recall, this committee had reviewed last year. And so you review that every year. And then, sort of guiding that is what's called the 5-year consolidated plan, which actually, is being worked on right now. Community development staff has actually been going out with, the planning staff on the land use plan. We've been going out to different neighborhoods around the city to talk about land use issues, but we've also infused conversations about community development in those conversations. So we're kind of getting a double whammy of good public involvement in both of those at the same time. As you know, people get weary of being asked to go to a lot of meetings, so we're trying to use these neighborhood meetings to try to get as much input as we can from the public. So that has been going well. The staff also runs the Brownfield program. There's a current active Brownfield project they're working on right now with the airport. So, that's always a continual project as well. The city receives direct funding for Brownfields too, which is great. There's also, as you may recall, we had asked permission to pursue other HUD grants that community development also runs. We've not heard yet. We don't expect to hear if we got those grants until December. So, and they also help, a lot of the congressional outlay programs that we've received funds for, like the Central Commercial Kitchen Project and the Science Center Project, which is a feasibility study. Those are, even though it looks like it's simple, it's a congressional outlay, you still have to do the same, almost like a grant application to be able to receive those funds. So I've been using community development staff to help get that because they're kind of used to that routine, and so they can help out with that. The economic development staff works on basically trying to implement that economic development strategy that you had voted in as part of the comp plan last year. A big portion of that is really selling the city. That was something that the economic development strategy really said was, you as the city of Bangor you already have a great city, but nobody knows about it. So you need to get out there and sell it. So, our economic development staff have really done a great job, getting on the board at Upstart Maine, just really getting involved in these statewide and beyond initiatives, working with the airport on the foreign trade zone, just really getting, Bangor out there. And then, also their function is, managing the Ben Air properties and the city properties that we own. As you know, we are in just an amazing position to actually own property to be used for economic development. And, with the Grandview project using for housing, we're in a position where we actually get to be part of the solution and take the lead on it. So, that's really exciting to be able to do that. We've also been able to establish relationships with like the Northern Border Commission, and economic development at the federal level, just so that we can get into those funding cycles, to get these projects that you want to see put forward, to be able to fund those. And then the housing officer was a newly created position, and he, kind of led the work of the housing production plan. He's been working on the Grandview project. Anytime there's a housing development, before, that might be coming in before planning board, he's part of those staff reviews. So, and we also involve him in, the first time home buyer program, just trying to get into those existing things that we're doing and really giving more focus to it than we've had capacity to do in the past, which is great. The planning division, the work is really, guided from the comprehensive plan and, more recently, the climate action plan. And, those really guide the projects of planning. And also the regulatory boards, planning board, historic preservation commission, as well as the Penjajawak Mall Area Commission's work. So, they have a lot of focus between, sort of that large scale planning of the comprehensive plan, as well as the implementation of the plan, which I call the proning process, is really the implementation of the comp plan. So, we are in a great position statewide with the Historic Preservation Commission as a certified local government. As you know, have received funds because you're a certified local government in the past, and we continue to pursue those funds to be able to do historic survey work. The last time we did a historic survey was the late 70s, early 80s. We've been able to, invigorate that survey information, get that to be connected to the GIS, which is really helpful for people that own those properties or are interested in doing research, to have that information readily available to them. So, and then we have a lot of special projects that we work on. There's representation on BACs with engineering and public works. We also staff the Livable Communities Committee. We facilitate that effort. That's sort of an open committee. We really use it as a way to get information out to the public and in a different way, that people that may not want to go to meetings, other types of meetings. This is a way that people can get involved in what's going on with the city. So we're continuing to foster that to be able to have that that connection and looking at our projects with an age-friendly lens. We also are working with a group for the recreation economy for rural communities. That was a grant that the former Convention and Tourist Bureau Visitors Bureau, had received. And that money continues to come in from Maine Office of Tourism. So we're working with a group comprised of the downtown folks, Chamber, Husson, and Eastern Maine Development Corporation. And, we meet on a regular basis. And, to do the projects that we've been getting the funding for example, right now, we're going to be starting a branding exercise this week that received funding for. So that's a great project to get involved in. And of course, the downtown planning, that's, we meet on a regular basis with the downtown partnership, with their staff, and coordinate projects with them as well. And also the Cultural Commission is also staffed by us.
Got a full plate. And I'm glad you're fully staffed.
And fully staffed,
Yeah,
which is
which is
great.
great.
Yeah.
Very important. Other questions, comments? Councilor Lundy.
I just have comments. I mean, I really appreciated just the layout of not only your accomplishments, but also you're able to detail some of the challenges that you have with through the rhetoric here of what you've been doing over the course of this time. And I'm sure Dina, former Councilor Yacobaga were here. She commend you for your handling of CDBG funding and a multitude of other things. One thing I just want to say that I really appreciate, and I think folks at home don't really understand sometimes how creative you have to be in the field of economics to grow and expand, not only just as an organization, but also as a municipality as well. And I remember when you first came on, Ann, and you had a skeleton crew. And not only do I just really have loved to see just how you blossomed into the role, but you've really done such a good job taking in all this new staff from various different backgrounds that would normally overwhelm someone. You just like went with the ride with it. And well, one of the things that it's a small thing, but I really appreciate the coordination that your department's been having with the airport, with the foreign trade as well. I mean, half of our state's surrounded by another country. So of course, we should have some sort of integrated role into foreign trade in some way, shape, or form. And I'm glad to see that we're taking so many initiatives. I know there's gonna be some that are gonna be very challenging, but I'm looking forward to seeing more of the content in the future. And to echo Councilor Forney, yeah, you have a lot on your plate.
Thank you.
Anything else? We're good. Anything else for the order?
No, nothing else.
With that being said, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.